The Schilling Show continues here on this Manic Monday edition of the program, and starting the first of monthly visits with Sam Richardson, Executive Director at the Jefferson Council, a terrific organization with updates monthly on what's going on at UVA in a way that UVA won't tell you about, which is why I so appreciate the Jefferson Council. Sam Richardson, thank you for joining us today on the Schilling Show. It's really great to have you with us.
Good afternoon, Rob. Great to be here, and congratulations on those 17 years.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really hard to believe, but you know how time flies. So let's start off for people that are not familiar with the Jefferson Council. And by the way, you have assumed the position and leadership there, which is rather new for you, so I wish you congratulations as well. Tell us about it.
Thank you. Yes, the Jefferson Council was started in 2020 during the George Floyd riots and issues of campus policy, student safety, what is appropriate free speech, what is appropriate indoctrination or quote-unquote education in a classroom, what are the best ways to have discussions on grounds at UVA specifically. And so 5 UVA alums got together and said, we need to hold the university accountable to having the light shine on the books, meaning not just finances, but policy. And where policy is unclear, let's ask the university and even require the university to clarify those policies and to actually then live by their own policies. There is a tendency in many university administrations to be working by policies that, because they haven't been publicized, they're called working papers, and we're going to use those to guide us, but nobody really knows what those are outside of the president's inner circle. And then a student, faculty member, staff, they can be found in violation of a policy that nobody really ever knew about. So we're looking for openness in that respect. And we also would like to see, especially at UVA, one of the oldest universities in our country, founded by one of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. He, of course, wrote the Declaration of Independence and significant works that created not only the vision, but the reality of our country as one of the most prosperous and free nations on the face of the earth. And so we would like to preserve the Jefferson legacy. We would like to preserve the appearance of the lawn, Jefferson's own academic village, which in recent years, again, beginning back in 2020, has been abused in many ways. And the rules that used to be incumbent upon students and faculty to uphold the appearance and the prestige of the lawn has gone by the wayside. And then finally, the organization was founded to support and reinvigorate the honor system. Now, the honor system had been very clear. I will not lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate anyone else who does. And it was a one and you're out. But now there's the strike system and adjudication and falls under Title VI, and very complicated. And again, there are rules that students don't necessarily know about when they are charged with an honor violation until they may have gotten all the way through and been convicted and expelled, and then they go, oh, I could have been represented. I could have actually understood what the charges were against me better. And so we're trying to do all of that. I know that's not exactly a summary, but that's our mandate for existence, the Jefferson Council at the University of Virginia.
It is such a heavy load, and I'm so appreciative of you stepping up along with all of your colleagues. And this is a very large group and a lot of very influential people working together to restore UVA. It's really sad what's gone on. I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about the lawn because, as you mentioned, that was a place of honor. I have at least one friend I know of who lived on the lawn during his time there, and it was a huge honor. And the lawn has really just been desecrated, and it's been extended to people who despise the University of Virginia, who despise the lawn itself. I mean, I can hardly believe that this is happening.
It is tragic and sad. The lawn had been, from its inception, a place of honor for students who met certain academic standards as their place to live while at the university. And it has become a place for expression of negativity towards the university, towards the Commonwealth of Virginia, towards Western ideals and education and economics. The famous F blank blank UVA, and I mean, you can tell it just by thinking about it. It is really disturbing to me.
Yeah.
Just to picture those signs in my head throws me off. How that doesn't affect other people, like the students who write it, I have no idea. But it's a huge problem. I will say that I did last week, before students started arriving, I went and took pictures of every door on the lawn so that we have some before shots, so that hopefully we don't have any issues like we did last spring. But if we do, we will be able to show, okay, this is what it should be, and this is what happened.
Yeah, it's very sad that you have to spend your time doing that. It would have been unthinkable not so long ago. We're talking with Sam Richardson, Executive Director at the Jefferson Council, getting an update on things happening at UVA. So there's a couple of groups that were in maybe relative obscurity until recently at the University of Virginia who have reared their heads in not a pretty way. That would be Students for Justice in Palestine and Faculty for Justice in Palestine. Tell us about these groups and what's going on with them at UVA.
Well, unfortunately, these groups are not indigenous to UVA. As a matter of fact, they have links directly to terror organizations such as Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic Jihad, and domestically they have ties to Youth Social Democrats of America, which is, for all intents, an anti-American communist entity.
Yes.
And they receive financing and marching orders from these organizations through different channels. How do we know this? Well, through one of the lawsuits, actually there's two lawsuits pending that both draw the lines, dot the I's and cross the T's in showing how Islamic Jihad sends money and information and material through washed channels. You know, they should be legit, but they're being used for illegitimate purposes directly to these faculty and student organizations. And some of the evidence of that is the tent encampments that appeared on grounds at UVA and across campuses in America. These are brand new tents. And interestingly, a lot of them were the same brand coming from the same stores. Well, most students, even at a wealthier university, wouldn't be able to just go out and buy a bunch of tents, but they did. And where did they get that funding from? Or look at the statements that were made by these different groups that were all pretty much the same, and they came out on October 8th or 9th. Some of them we have evidence that they were in draft form on October 6th, the day before the Hamas attack against Israel. So there's obvious collaboration. It's not a stretch to see how funding and instructions have come from less than friendly sources to these groups. And just a couple weeks ago, there was a public posting on X from the Youth Social Workers of America instructing a student strike at campuses across the country. And so you can't get much more clear than that.
You really can't. So I guess the question is, if these groups are not indigenous or they're being supported or funded by influence operations for Islamists, what is their ability to operate at the University of Virginia? In other words, are there any rules being broken, or is this just simply free speech no matter the fact that they're being operated by a foreign entity, perhaps?
Well, the issue of the foreign entity, to my knowledge, outside of the pending lawsuits, has not been addressed. There were 3 closed sessions of the Board of Visitors last Thursday. I sat outside the door, could not really make out what they were talking about, but whether foreign entities have entered into the picture or not, I don't know. What we do know is that the Secretary of Education issued a very clear letter stating that there would be chaos if Commonwealth law were not followed by the universities subject, the public universities subject to Commonwealth law in Virginia. And from there, we saw very quickly both VCU and VTech issued updated regulations for public demonstrations of free speech. Now, there was nothing from UVA at that time, and then we had the announcement early last week of the closed sessions, and then the closed sessions were held. And so as of last week, Friday, there was an update from the Religious Diversity and Belonging Task Force report from UVA. And then as of this morning, there was an update to the protest demonstrations and gatherings policies. And both of those have clarified some of what is allowed and what is not. Going to the policies document, which actually may be found, it came out in the UVA News this morning, and so it's fairly easy to find out on the web, news.virginia.edu. It gives both bullet points and then access to the full documents. It defines the area of the academic village and basically applies inexplicitly, but it implicitly applies the updated regulations to that space. And what it says is no more masks. That we are going to follow Commonwealth law, which clearly states that you may not wear a mask for the purpose of obscuring your identity, and that a representative of the university or of a authoritative police department can ask you for your identification, and you must provide identification, which I hope will also mean that faculty and others who are quote-unquote liaisons to these protesting student groups would not stand in the way of people wearing masks or keffiyehs or whatever is hiding their identity, preventing the lawful request and requirement of an ID to be presented. So that was pretty big. The second is that outdoor tents are... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let's hold the line because we're running late into the segment here, and I want to get to the tents. So we're talking with Sam Richardson, Jefferson Council. 977-1070 is the phone number. And yes, some breaking news that there were updated rules released this morning. I had a chance to look at them cursorily, but Sam has looked at them in great depth. So we'll learn about tents on the other side into the final segment of the Schilling Show. Stay with us. All right, the Schilling Show into our final segment. There's so much to say. We're obviously not going to get to all of it with Sam Richardson, Executive Director at the Jefferson Council, but there have been some updated rules, and you were talking right before the break about tents, which was another issue of contention, and rightfully so, a huge safety issue amongst other things. So what's the latest on tents?
Yes. If I may just real quick, let me clarify what I said before. The definition of the lawn area actually is referred to in the actual policy document, that aside from the authorized use of the upper lawn, lower lawn, and garden, no other locations in the academic village may be reserved. So people are definitely can only use those areas. So I want to clarify that.
Yes.
But the tent issue is that, okay, you can't camp. There is no overnight camping allowed, and no tent may remain up for more than 18 hours or between the hours of midnight and 6, which means if you get a permit, you must request a permit to put up a tent. If you are given a permit to put up a tent in these defined areas, then you can only put it up at 6 a.m. and it must come down at midnight. And that tent must be in use for official university or school events. So they've pretty much blocked out the ability of any type of protesters to utilize tents to build encampments to provide a large permanent area to block access and to make a sign that says we are here and you have to deal with us. So that's probably a good thing. Less intimidating. You can stand. You can have signs. You can have non-electrified amplification. So you can have a non-electric bullhorn or roll a piece of paper and yell through it all you want, but you can't have electrically amplified sound. So it's going to be very much tempered, presuming this is enforced.
Yeah.
Very much tempered from what we saw last fall and spring after October the 7th. So free speech is allowed. Interestingly, I could not find anything that spoke of calls for violence, and the religious committee does talk about anti-Jewish and anti-Islamic speech, and they even come out and specifically say that they are beholden to the Commonwealth's adoption of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. I thought that was key, because since they admit that it's state law, the university is subject to it, we can now utilize that in honor code violations, in pointing out to university policy that there are professors, there are students who are violating that definition of anti-Semitism. Let's do an investigation. Whereas before they said, oh, we have no idea.
We've got just a little over a minute left with Sam Richardson. So I saw this release that came out on Friday that you referenced, this report, and I saw a number that I found hard to believe, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was well into the 70 percentile of students, of Jewish students at UVA, felt safe or were satisfied or something. That just seemed to defy logic. I don't know if you saw the same number or what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, it's like 77%.
Yes.
And Muslim students just a little under that. Well, but that was from the 2022 survey.
Oh, interesting. I missed that little detail.
Yeah, not from 2023, 2024. And in that same report, there is a plan to do new surveys every year, the next one scheduled in 2025. So they're giving it a full year plus from October 7th. I think, they're hoping that things will calm down. That's yet to be seen. And then when they do the new survey, then they'll have numbers probably not as high as in 22, but hopefully higher than what we would guess today.
Yes, indeed. Sam Richardson, we're just about out of time, but I know people would like to get involved or get more information on the Jefferson Council. How can we help you?
They can go right to the jeffersoncouncil.com, and our contact information is there. They can send a direct email to me, sam@thejeffersoncouncil.com, and we would like to hear from parents, students, faculty, concerned community members, and because the more people who are involved in shining this light brighter, the more successful we're going to be in returning our beloved university to Jeffersonian principles.
I'm so pleased that you're there and for what you're doing. Sam Richardson, I look forward to the next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
All right. That's going to wrap up today's edition of The Schilling Show. Wow. Lots of information, lots to chew on there, and we just basically scratched the surface with Sam of all the things we wanted to discuss, but we'll pick it up again, and this is going to be a regular segment on The Schilling Show.